Hello, my name is Marcus Banuelos. I grew up in Norwalk, California. I currently reside in La Fuente. And today I'd like to share with you a demonstration on two ways on how to approach a drawing. As you can see here, we have a beautiful still life we'll be working with today. And I'd like to show you what materials we'll be using. Today. I will be beginning the drawing using Vine charcoal, which is very forgiving, very malleable, and easy to use. I also have an arrangement of various colored soft pastel here that we will be using for both drawings, as well as three different hardcore values here: a white, a mid-tone, which is a gray, and as well as a dark. And I will also be measuring with measuring tape to get a more accurate measurement of the objects. And depending on how things go and how fluid you want to be with your drawing, here are some acrylic paints as well as brushes. Here we have our still life that we will be working from. And a still life is an arrangement of various objects. It could range from pots, pans. Here we have food. It could be an assortment of things and just how creative you can get. So gesture drawing is working from innate, fast approaching decisions without having to complicate it by getting accurate measurements. And by this way, it allows you to really find and translate from within and lay down on how you're feeling, how you're translating the drawing. And I began by loosely getting the large shapes. I started with those tart pans and very circular donut shapes. And the more I progressed through the drawing, I began to add the color. So I'm currently identifying each color that I'm seeing by finding the local hue, the local color. So that's just really being yellow's yellow, brown is brown. And what I'm finding is that when I'm working with what's in front of me, the closest objects like the chip bag and the food, that I begin to need to really work outside of that table space and really work on the background, because if I push on the background when I work back in the foreground of the food, it'll really help complement it by bringing the still life forward. And by bringing it forward, it would create this illusion to the viewer of it being closer in perspective. And after I've had sort of identified the large colors and the shapes, I began to use my thumb and really pushing that pigment into the paper. That way it creates a nice coat of pastel. You can also rub the paper and smear, but I find that you get a better textural level if you pat it inside the paper. And now after a quick 2 hours, we sort of stopped at a great point where we can really observe the drawing and see the details we've sort of brought out, and we can decide on how much further to push this drawing. Here we have our second composition, still life, that we'll be working from. And I like to really capture that light from behind the still life. And as you notice, the still life is in shadow. And this term is called contre-jour, which means lit from behind. And you want to think of this sort of as a person standing in front of a window pane with bright sun coming through, and you see their silhouette. Now we will be working sight size, and sight size is taking measurements from your viewpoint of where you're standing. With my measuring tape, I'll be able to take accurate measurements of the objects and place them on the paper. By landmarking where each object will lie, I am able to create boxes for the circular shapes to help define the center. By making landmarks, I am able to anchor each object for a more confident laying of the design for this particular composition. Now, after locating each object, I am able to finally place the table down, and by adding light and shadow, I can place the midtones because I know that this still life is being in the shade of the garage. Now, after identifying the midtones and the darkest darks of the shadow, I go into the lit parts and begin to place those highlights. It was hard to find the distinction of the light being outside of the garage, so I placed a chair, which I think really helped the drawing out. And after an hour and a half, here is what we have, which I think strong, bold shapes found throughout value, white, grays, and darks.
As you can see here, now we have our two demonstrations regarding drawing, and drawing in the approaches of gesture and as well as size measurement. Now, with the gesture, it was sort of a free flowing beginning. It was sort of innate, how you feel, how you see, responding what you see, and letting your hand and your body find the movements. I know when I was beginning, I was trying to really get that size of that tart pan, and when I was flowing through there, it kind of went into a figure 8 where the donuts were. I sort of found this nice infinite bond here to help ground the drawing. And after that, I started to add in what these two platters are resting on, what they're sitting on, that table there. And that was sort of helping me grid everything out. And as soon as I started to find the platters and the plates, the vessel itself, now I can fill it with the ornaments that are in it, like these cupcakes, this pie, the chips. I was finding this, sphere, what's going on in this globe. And then I found the bag. From there, I found this leaning tower of donuts here, which is very strong, really grounds it. And now for the other drawing we did today, we approached it by using side measurement. And the way I began this drawing was using a handy dandy measuring tape. And by the use of this measuring tape, I'm able to extend my arm out. From there, I can measure the object within my visual realm. And I'm basing it off inches. 1.5 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches. And for this drawing, I doubled the size that I was seeing. So it's a little mathematical in a sense. So say that platter, I remember it was 4 inches, my sight size, but I doubled it, so therefore it would be 8 inches. And that's about the 8 inches there. And when using the sight size, a lot of people prefer that, even though it is a little more, I would say, time consuming, but the results are a little more pleasing to some. And everything began in relation. I was able to grid these down equal distance, and I decided to go with this drawing value-based. I didn't want the color to really distract, and I really wanted to see that powerful light coming through outside the garage door here. And I think putting the chair down made justice to how powerful that light is. It's no longer June gloom, so it'll be beautiful to work outdoors. And for these drawings, the light source were coming in different directions. So for the gesture drawing, while I was working on it, the light was coming directly towards it. So everything was very lit. For the second drawing, the light source is coming behind it. So as you can see, everything's really dark in value, while everything outside, behind it, is really popping forward. The term contre-jour, the light from behind, you want to think of, say, you're standing in front of a window and the person looks darker, almost like a silhouette against the light coming through. And that's here what we're going for. Now, both these drawings are a really good stopping point at the moment. We can now push this even further by using some workable fixative. We can be able to create a sheath over and work on again. That way we can create a nice layer of pastel over and over. And that's when those lights can really pop forward. So right now it's a really great general idea of where everything is, which works really well. And it could be pushed towards that next final level, towards the complete stage. And I say for 2 hours working on this, I would say it's a great point right now to really take it in and decide which areas to push, to focus on. And I think it would be really nice to create that really luminous chips bag right there. Now for the site size drawing, we worked in value, and I think we can really push that sort of drama in this drawing by making those darks even darker and sort of fusing these portions together. That way the light can kind of sing on its own, where we sort of have a dichotomy of the light versus the dark, and we can really find the details in everything, with the mid-tones, those nice grays. But I think all in all, I think these are both great stopping points and a great example of both gesture as well as site size. Thank you for watching the demonstrations, and I hope you enjoyed.